Now you don't hear about that anymore. You don't hear about people wanting to serve their country. You hear about people wanting to just take benefits from the military. I remember when I was in high school, I had a friend whose father was a high-level military commander. He was a lieutenant something in the U.S. Army, and I met him several times. He was remember the movie Taken with Liam Neeson? That movie's old, right? That's a 10-plus-year-old movie. He was like that guy, but taller and younger, and just by looking at him, he wasn't somebody you wanted to mess with. Guy was a stone cold killer. This guy killed people in Iraq, and he would take pictures of all the bodies, and he had them in a photo album. And every dead body that he saw in Iraq, he would take a photo of it, and he kept it in a photo album. And I never saw the photo album, but his son told me about it. I used to hang out with his son, and his son said, my father has this photo album. And he said, one day I'll show it to you. And he never did because he never really got a chance to. But he told me that he would have to wait for his father to leave the house to get his hands on it because his dad wouldn't let him just show it to anybody. But it was just very weird. Why would you take pictures of dead bodies? It's very weird. It's actually sick. It's sick. But he joined the military because he came from a very strong military family. And he told me that he wanted to join the military because he wanted to serve his country. And he really believed it. He wanted to serve America. And he did. He joined the Army right after high school. I remember, I don't think I ever told you guys this story, but I remember a number of years ago, 2 U.S. Army recruiters approached me. I was at the mall, minding my own business. I was at the mall. This happened back in 2015, 16, something like that. I was at the mall and I was enjoying some pretzels. I had a bag of, you know those pretzels you get at the mall? I had a little bucket of pretzels. Little pretzels and baked pretzels, and they gave you some nacho cheese so you could dip the pretzels in the nacho cheese, which is delicious. It's absolutely delicious. It really is. So I was sitting there enjoying my pretzels and nacho cheese, and these 2 guys approached me. Both are in Army uniforms. One black guy, one Hispanic dude. And they both just walk up to me and they said, "Sir, can we have a word with you for a moment?" And I knew exactly why they were there. I knew they were like 2 Mormons trying to get me into the LDS. They wanted to become Mormon, but these guys didn't want me to become Mormon. They wanted me to become a soldier in the U.S. Army, working for not the LDS but for the Pentagon. And they sat down because I was sitting at a table with a couple chairs, so they sat down, and they were just having a very, very blunt conversation with me, and they said, "Do you want to join? Are you interested in joining the U.S. Army?" I said, "Not really. I'm not really interested in joining. I'm just sitting down. Guys, I'm just sitting down. I'm enjoying the sunlight. I'm eating my pretzels and nacho cheese. Just want to relax. I don't want to talk about joining no army. I don't want to talk about having some drill sergeant yell at me for hours or getting me to do some..." One thing that really scares me about the U.S. military, and I told this to them. The biggest reason why, one of the biggest reasons why I do not want to join the U.S. Army is because of the problem of rape that the Army has. People get raped in the U.S. Army. Yeah. People don't talk about it a lot. They don't talk about it enough. But it's very real. People get raped in the U.S. Army. For some reason with Americans, I don't know, they just get a lot of them get into some weird stuff. But I started talking to them and I said, "Listen, I'm not really interested in joining no U.S. Army." And they weren't telling me, "Hey, you need to serve your country." They didn't tell me that. They said, "Excuse me, sir, if you join the Army, we will pay for your education. We will pay for your house. If you have a mortgage, we'll get that house paid for." So the U.S. Army, people aren't even interested in fighting for their country. People are interested in fighting for what benefits they can get out of the Army. And most people in the U.S. Army are not even in combat units. That's only like 5% of the Army. That's about 5% of the Army are actually in combat units, from what I've heard. The majority of people, the great majority of people in the U.S. military are there for regular jobs. Putting toilet paper in the bathrooms. I mean, someone's got to do it. But that's actually a job in the U.S. military. Supplying people with toilet paper, cooking, barbers. You have people who cut hair in the U.S. military. Janitors. I mean, someone's got to clean up all these bases. There's many different jobs in the U.S. Army, and the U.S., not just Army, military. And the U.S. military is always saying yes to people applying for jobs. The U.S. military is one corporation in the United States that never says no to a job application. You can always find a job in the U.S. military. But again, you can clean toilets, janitor, toilet paper, cooking, stocking up on supplies, moving boxes up. I mean, there's all sorts of jobs in the U.S. military. I knew a guy, his name was Terry Schapper. Terry Schapper, you can look him up. He does stuff for Discovery Channel from time to time. He did Shark Week. I don't know if he's still doing it, but I remember for years he did Shark Week for Discovery Channel. I knew this guy. We used to talk on the phone sometimes. We talked on the phone a couple times. For the most part, a cool guy. For the most part. But Terry Schapper, I remember he said he was in the U.S., I think he's still in the U.S. Green Berets, or he's in the National Guard, last I checked. But for a while, he was a Green Beret. And I remember one time he said, there's a very small percentage of people in the military who are there to fight. He said, I don't mean to offend anybody, but for the most part, people who join the military are there just for a job. They're not interested in fighting in combat. He said, and this is actually what he said, and he said this in public. He didn't say this in a private conversation. He said this in an interview. He said, I don't mean to offend anybody, but for the most part, the military is just a big welfare department. People just want benefits. They go in there for the benefits. They want to get their house paid for. They want to get their school loan paid for. And that's why they're there. They're not there to serve their country. So this whole idea of serving your country is... I think that if I haven't tested for this, but I wouldn't be surprised that if you actually went to people nowadays and said, I want to serve my country, you would be laughed at. Because people would just say, what are you talking about serving your country? You're not really serving your country, serving in Italy. What are you doing there? You're just there for the big American empire. How are you serving your country? Now, you could say, well, I'm there to make sure the Russians don't invade us or something like that. But my point is that the idea of serving your country is dead. Bottom line, it's the idea of serving your country is dead. People are people for the most part join the military for what they can get out of the military. And these two recruiters, they were trying to convince me to join the military. We talked for a good hour. They didn't just say, oh, sorry to bother you, I'll leave you with your pretzels. Nah, they were there for a good hour, maybe even an hour and a half. It was a long conversation. And I said to them, okay. And this black guy said, yo, man, you can get your house paid for, man. He says, joining the Army was the best decision I ever made in my life. He said, my house, paid for. My wife and I, we got our house paid for by the U.S. military. I said, well, that's good for you, but I'm just not interested in joining the military. The Hispanic guy, the black guy was a nice guy. He was a cool guy. Hispanic dude, he was a little bit too aggressive. And there was at one point in the conversation where he was getting a little bit edgy. He was getting a little bit antsy with me. A little bit antsy. A little bit agitated. Because he realized that I was a guy who kind of read about this subject. So I wasn't completely clueless. And I remember telling him, well, I said, isn't there a rape problem in the U.S. military? Don't men get raped in the military? Black dude says to me, that was a problem, but not so much anymore. I got to give it to him. That was an honest answer. He said, yeah, that was a problem, but not so much anymore, meaning that it's still there. Hispanic dude starts getting freaking antsy. And I think he probably got frustrated with the black guy because the black guy was being honest. And the Hispanic guy comes over and he says, listen, let me tell you something. He said, I dealt with that problem before. A lot of these reports of rape, they're bullshit. They're just bullshit. People making up things, people lying. Right. And that's why you hear about soldiers committing suicide. And that's why you hear about soldiers going to the Veterans Department and seeking help because they've been raped. And that's why you hear stories about soldiers going to their superior officers and saying that they've been raped, only for the superior officer to tell them to man up. And that's why the American Psychological Association said years ago that literally thousands of Americans have been raped. Oh, because it's all bullshit, right? Oh, yeah. Yeah. Just like Japanese nationalists say that there was no rape in Nanking. Oh, no, that's also bullshit. But this guy was this Hispanic guy, I'll be honest with you, he was awful. I didn't like him. He was evil. I got the sense that he was very evil. Black dude was a cool guy. He was a cool dude. He was a cool brother. But the other guy, he was a nasty guy. Nasty guy. The way that he was trying to manipulate me. That's the word. He was trying to manipulate me because I said to him, but it is a problem. I've read that men have been raped in the U.S. military. You know what he tells me? He says, listen, you can either sit there and complain about it, or you can actually join the military and make a difference and actually change it. You can sit there and complain and bitch and complain about the military, or you can actually join the military and make a change. And I said, yeah, like little old me gonna make a change. Right. Man, that was crazy the way he flipped on me like that. So then I said to him, listen, if I join the U.S. military, so this is when things got geopolitical. I said to him, if I join the U.S. military, that means I have to serve Turkey. I said, because Turkey right now, I said, this is before the Nagorno-Karabakh war, but I said, Turkey denies the Armenian genocide, and they're in northern Syria right now, and they got their soldiers in northern Syria, and they're expanding their little hegemony. And I said, if I join the military, I have to support those people. That means I could be sent to the Middle East to work with Turkish soldiers. I said, I don't want to work with Turkish soldiers. I don't want to work with Turkish soldiers. And man, the look on their faces were just deflated. It was just disappointment. Man, we got it. We should have just let this dude eat his pretzels because this guy knows a bunch of stuff that we don't even know about. It was a very crazy conversation that I had with these guys, but they were really trying to convince me to join. It was about an hour long conversation. Ted, you sound like the character Bob from the movie La Bamba. When you do your La Bamba, I've never even heard of this film, but is it something like the dude from Scarface? An alien. My USMC veteran son is 6'4". Wow, he's a tall guy. Maybe he's a predator. Maybe. Catanonia in the background. Yup. This is the soundtrack for the stream, and you've been a great contributor to the soundtrack for the stream. Being married in the military gotta be a nightmare. It is. I'm in total agreement with you. I knew a guy in the Marine Corps years ago, and he told me, he said when he first joined the Marine Corps, the guy, the drill sergeant guy, whoever it was that he was talking to, asked him, "Are you married?" He said, "No." He said, "Good, keep it that way, son." And he said, "Well, why do you say that?" And this old guy explained it to him. He said, "Listen, if you're married and you join the Marine Corps and you're out on the battlefield and you find out that your lady getting banged by some other guy, you are going to be out of your depth, out of your element, and you will not be able to fully function in the battlefield. And that is the least thing that we want for a soldier to not be able to function in the battlefield. So he said, do not get married until you leave the military. When you leave the military, then get married. When you're in the military, do not get married. That's what he told me. And he said there was so much infidelity that went on in the military. It was unbelievable how much infidelity goes on in the military. But he was telling me all about it. He was saying that it was just unbelievably rampant. Married women getting banged by other soldiers. I mean, it's a nightmare. Complete nightmare. Especially if you live on base. If you live on base, I mean, someone's going to try to bang your wife. If you live on base, someone's going to get banged. And I heard a story about a 3-star general. I don't remember his name. 3-star general. I think he was a 3-star general. I heard this story from a tank guy. He operated a tank in the military. And he told me, he said, this guy, I think he was a general or some kind of colonel. He was a high-ranking guy in the military. Comes to his house after work only to find another soldier banging his wife. And I heard that and I said, forget it. And you always hear about how women want a man of status. Well, this guy was a man of status and his wife was getting banged by a guy who was in a lower status. Yeah. Forget it, guys. Forget it. The only real soldier served for the country was John Rambo. Absolutely. Shit, when I was younger, I wanted to be Rambo. Too bad. CP is a disqualifier. Of course, now I wouldn't fight for the... I mean, yeah, when I was in high school, I thought about joining the military as well. And I never forget it. I was in a car ride with my father, and I told him that I wanted to join the military. And he said, I didn't raise you for all these years for you to get shot by a 10-cent bullet for some fat politician to shake my hand and say your son died for his country. And that's what he told me. And that was convincing enough for me. Not interested in fighting when instead of fighting for the country, we fight to the line of elites. We fight to line the elites' pockets with green. Yep. I tried to join after high school, but failed the ASVAB test 3 times. LOL. Looking back now, it was the best outcome that could have happened. Absolutely. Daughter's husband will be getting out of Marines in July. Recruitment is low, mostly Mexicans. Oh, yeah, tons of Mexicans have joined the military. Darko Zivic wrote something in Serbian, but I cannot understand it, so I'm going to use Google Translate. Here we go. We'll recruit migrants into the American Army. Oh, that type of thing has been going on for a while. I remember back during the Iraq War in 2004... reading an article about how the United States government was telling illegal immigrants that if they joined the military and fought in Iraq and survived, that they would be granted U.S. citizenship. So that strategy has already been ongoing.